Matt Schneidman Show, Tuesday, October 1st, and you're probably wondering, who the hell is that guy with him? That's my boss, Tim Scott. He's filling in for Doug Russell today, Hunter Baumgart, who also fills in for Doug on Brewers duty today. My background's a little different because we wanted to provide anyone who's listening to the show is probably a Brewers fan. And as you can tell, if you're watching the stream, Tim is very invested in the Brewers game as well. So I am in my living room, got the Brewers game on the TV over here. Big day for the Milwaukee Brewers, but the Packers are still playing. We're still doing our show. Packers still getting ready for a trip to Los Angeles to play the Rams. Tim, how you doing?
I'm not good. The Mets just tied the game. Churio botches one in the outfield. And then infield hit to Hoskins. And Pyops is slow covering the bag, doesn't get his foot there in time, misses the bag. And tie game, 4-4. But, hey, let's talk Packers.
Yeah, if you're a frequent listener of this show, you know there are a few things I like more that I won't do today out of respect for my boss than trolling Brewers fans who paint me as the big market guy who likes to bully the little market Milwaukee Brewers, which is fine. I won't do it today. Let's talk Packers. The topic du jour of the day is Devante Adams has reportedly requested a trade from the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, obviously, the Packer fans' natural instinct is to ask the question, as it is anytime a big-name player becomes available, especially a wide receiver. Should the Packers make a call? Will the Packers make a call? I want to get your thoughts on this, Tim, as I see the Brewers are in a commercial break. Should the Packers make a call on Devante Adams? Will they make a call on Devante Adams?
No.
Because I have a definitive answer for both.
I don't think they should. They won't make that call. Why would they make that call? Because Devante Adams, if it's Goody, whomever it is on the other end, he's not going to answer from the Packers. Then they're done there, right?
Yeah, I think that's part of it. I think in the situation the Packers were in at the time, they couldn't financially afford it. They're in a better position financially now. I know they just paid Jordan Love, but I think a general manager's, and before I go into this explanation, just exploring both sides of this, I want to make it clear my answer is no to both of those. Make a call? No. Will they make a call? An even more resounding no. Now, it could work financially because according to Over the Cap, whoever trades for Devante Adams would take on $13.8 million in salary for the rest of this season. And the Packers have a little over $14 million in available salary cap space, according to Over the Cap. Now, the reports are that it would take a second-round pick and some extra compensation to make the trade. The Packers traded him for a 1 and a 2 a couple years ago. Is that too steep for Brian Gutekunst? Probably. Like you said, they've been there, done that. So if they weren't willing to pay that money back then, why would they be willing to take it on his salary now and, pony up that compensation? I will say if it's only $13.8 million, Devante Adams is going to be a free agent. Or not a free agent, but the guaranteed part of his contract is up after this season. It's just a rental for whoever trades for him. But would the Packers just want Devante Adams as a rental? All that stuff aside, they don't need him. Like, could they use him? Any team could use Devante Adams. That's not what I'm saying. My point is not the Packers are not a better team with Devante Adams. They are. Any team is. But they don't need him because, as John Kuhn and I talked about on our podcast this morning, and that Brick and the Stick is available wherever you get your podcast now.
Including the iHeartRadio app.
The Packers have 4 or 5 guys you can rely upon. And Jaden Reed is starting to become that number one guy that defenses have to really hone in on and keep their eyes on. But if you have Devante Adams, that's your clear-cut number one. And it makes things a little bit more predictable for defenses because you know who the quarterback is going to throw to. Now, there's probably part of it, too, where Brian Gutekunst says, if we have Devante, it's going to stunt the growth of our young guys. Now, I don't think that's a completely sound rationale. You should do whatever it takes to make your team better and not always look toward the future, especially when you have a win-now team like the Packers do. But all that being said, they're not going to do it. They're not going to do it. They shouldn't do it. Now, there are people out there who say, bring him home, bring him home. That's not going to happen. So sorry to put a damper on anyone who thinks the Packers are going to bring Devante Adams back. I know He looks good in the green and gold, and he's not going to the Chiefs either. I know that's another popular destination people are pegging him to, but the Raiders are not going to trade him in the division. I think the Jets would be the most entertaining place to reunite him with Rodgers. I think Packer fans who don't have to worry about the Jets, them being in the AFC, would love to watch Devante and Aaron go to work together again. So we'll see where Devante Adams goes. Always intriguing when a top player requests a trade and is on the market, as the Brewers, I believe, give up.
Yeah, I think they've given
again?
up 2 runs here. Yeah. Ashby came in, gave up 2 base hits. And after the Mets now lead this game by a score of 6-4. So maybe what this is, it is history repeating itself. So you're in a short series here. So if you lose game 1, you've got to come back and win games 2 and 3. So this is the year of the 82 Brewers, man. The movie, everything else. They were down in every playoff series they were. Outside of the World Series, of course, which they didn't win. But I know you don't care. Hey, by the way, with Devante.
No, I do care. I want to throw this stat out there. I saw a stat on this broadcast. I think it's 14 out of the 16 teams who have lost game 1 in this current playoff format have gone on to lose the series. So there's still 2 out of 16 who have won. The Brewers will still have hope if they lose this game. This game is far from over. And also, 13 of those 14 have been sweeps. So the odds are against them if they lose this game, but there's still plenty of game left.
By the way, with Devante Adams, I think the only place he's going is the Jets. Why? Because what did Aaron say earlier this year? He said, I can't wait to play with Devante again. That's what he said.
You got to wonder this, though. It takes 2 to tango. Now, I don't know Devante's contract situation. I'm not sure if there's a no-trade clause. Not that he would waive it to go to the Jets, but you have to wonder, is part of the reason Devante left Green Bay to, get his own team, pretty much.
Mm-hmm.
He obviously said publicly that the main reasons for him leaving were to be closer to his family. I know playing with Derek Carr was a big part in it. Could he go back to the Saints to play with Carr? How much of it was, I don't want to say getting out of Aaron Rodgers' shadow. I don't know if that's a part of it, but it could have been. Now, that's not to say he doesn't want to go to the Jets. He's experienced a team that's his, per se. And now at this point in his career, at 31 years old, I bet he just wants to win. So do the Jets give him the best chance to win? It's possible. But the Raiders also have to accept the deal and be pleased with the compensation. Devante doesn't just get to choose where he goes.
Well, if you're a sports cynic and you believe that things are scripted, remember that's the whole joke about the NFL, that everything is scripted.
Of course.
Well, Aaron, it laid it right out in front of you that there's nothing more the NFL would like than to have the Jets behind Aaron Rodgers make it all the way at least to the championship game. Right?
I need a Packers-Jets Super Bowl more than I need air to breathe.
Yeah, we both do. I'm all in on that. But, it's like we talk about the baseball playoffs. What does Major League Baseball want? They want the Mets to advance, right? Maybe they won't say that, but from a television standpoint, from a revenue standpoint, what do they want? I mean, you're a Yankees fan, so I'm preaching to the choir here. You know how this works, right?
They want the Dodgers and the Yankees in the World Series.
Yes. They will never. What they will say is, they'll never admit this publicly, but they'll say we hope, because if the Brewers make it, or if the Royals make it, or Detroit today knocked off Houston in their first playoff game, shocked the world perhaps there. But yeah, what does the NFL want? They would love to see the Jets and the Packers make it to New Orleans. I'm going to be there. You're going to be there. We would love to have this happen.
Packers make it.
If the Packers make it, yeah.
I'm only going if the Packers go. Yeah, I just thankfully don't have to stress over playoff baseball until Saturday. I actually had my flight to Los Angeles for this weekend's Packers-Rams game.
Did you have it delayed?
No, I didn't have it delayed, but my original flight was supposed to leave Green Bay around 3-ish,
right?
Connect in Chicago, get to Los Angeles around 8 p.m. Western time, Pacific time. I moved my flight up because there are 4 MLB divisional round games on Saturday, starting at 1:30, and I don't know what time the Yankees are going to play since it's TBD. Now, I moved my flight up to leave Green Bay at 6:45 a.m. and connect in Chicago, get to Los Angeles at 11:30 local time. So that way, no matter when the Yankees play, even if it's the first game, which I would be surprised if they put a game at Yankee Stadium in that early afternoon slot on a Saturday. I won't miss the game regardless. So I am changing my whole travel schedule so I make sure I'm in a hotel room seated. And Tim, I feel bad because you have to do the show with me today. I know how watching playoff baseball is for a team that you love. I only want to watch games by myself, alone in my house, not out at a bar, not drinking beers, certainly not live on the radio. And it's now 8-4 New York Mets.
Ugh.
Oh boy. That's not good.
Nope. Wow. 8-4 is the Mets. Have another base hit. A Mets fan holding up a sign right now that says OMG. Wow. See, you know what? Here's what we're going to do. The next segment, I'm just going to back out. You and Wayne Larivee can talk Packers.
And you can watch the Brewers come back.
Well,
how about
you
that?
know what? I'm going to switch the channel now. Maybe
No, you can't switch the channel. It's the playoffs.
Stay with it. Yeah, it's true. It's only the fifth inning, right?
It's only the fifth inning. There's plenty of time left. Now, it obviously doesn't look good. One other thing I want to tackle before we get to break in a couple minutes. So the Washington Post came out with a report today saying and I'm going to read the tweet from Mark, who covers the NFL for the Washington Post. This has been a discussion point here in Green Bay. The NFL and Competition Committee are mulling moving the touchback spot on kickoffs to the 35-yard line to boost returns, but it's not likely to happen, sources say, until the offseason. Now, we've discussed this on this show before, how there has to be something done to change the lack of kick returns. This rule was implemented. These new dynamic kickoff rules were implemented to incentivize more returns because the NFL thought, hey, teams won't want to give opponents an extra 5 yards on the touchback. So they're going to let them return the ball. Well, guess what? Here's a stat for you. Keyshawn Nixon, who has been a first-team All-Pro kick returner for the past 2 seasons, has been back there for 17 kickoffs this season. 16 of them have gone for touchbacks. And the one he returned with like 30 seconds left against the Eagles with the Packers down 5.
You're like, what are you doing?
He was instructed. I don't want to say he was instructed not to because I don't exactly know how the communication went on the sideline, but Matt LaFleur has since taken blame, basically saying we shouldn't have brought that one out. He cost the Packers 14 yards because he returned it to the 16 from 8 yards deep in the end zone. So they started on their own 16 instead of their own 30. So really, it should have been 17 kickoffs, 17 touchbacks. Last game against the Titans after a touchback, I looked down on the field and saw Keyshawn Nixon visibly frustrated, being demonstrative. Rich Bisaccia told us last week that one of his jobs as special teams coordinator is to, make sure kickers make kicks, which we'll talk about later in the show, but to make sure Keyshawn doesn't get frustrated back there. He's getting frustrated, and I don't blame him because teams are just willing to give the Packers those extra 5 yards so they don't risk the best kick returner in football breaking one. It's definitely a point of discussion. I'll be fascinated to see if they change the rule this offseason to incentivize more kick returns. Because right now, teams don't care if they just give the other team an extra 5 yards. It's 5 yards. 10 yards might change things, though.
I agree with you on that. There's no way they're going to change this now.
No, they can't do it in the middle of the season.
They're not going to do it in the middle of the season, no. But you would have thought that they would have thought this out a little bit more, right? Didn't anyone in that room, Matt, go, there is a possibility, though, that no one is going to return kicks. They're going to be content taking the ball. And part of this, I think, maybe not, but there's part of me that thinks because there's so many what I'm going to call mega legs now in the NFL, the guys are bombing them from 50 plus on a regular basis. By the way, just a side note, I saw a stat today, which I'm sure you're aware of. We're the only team in the NFL that has a kicker that's missed a kick under, is it 35 yards this season?
Under 40, actually. Braden kickers, I looked it up today. Zach Cruz tweeted that out. I for my own research purposes, just wanted to double check it. Kickers are 115 for 116 this season on kicks of less than 40 yards. The one Braden Narveson hit the right upright on as the Brewers get out of the inning on Sunday against the Vikings, I believe it was from 39, is the only miss from less than 40 yards for any kicker this season. And Braden Narveson has missed the most field goals in the league this season. Rich Bisaccia likes what he's doing on kickoffs. He's also tied for the most field goals attempted this season, so he doesn't have the worst percentage.
Right.
If you want a little silver lining there. That being said, the two guys who have a worse percentage, Justin Tucker, potential future Hall of Famer, two of his three misses have come from 50 or more yards. Matt Gay of the Colts, both of his misses have come from 50 or more yards. Braden Narvison hasn't even attempted a field goal of 50 or more yards. So that's what I want to get into with Wayne as we get to break here. We'll have the voice of the Packers, Wayne Larivee, on next. Do the Packers need a change at kicker? They're obviously not making a change this week, but how short is Braden Narvison's leash after he's missed 4 field goals? And if you want to count a fifth that was negated, how short is his leash after this rocky start? We'll get to that and much more after the break, right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on The Game. Back here on the Matt Schneidman Show, Tuesday, October 1st. And you know what we like to do here on the show. We like to hype up Iron Jock. They're fantastic products. Let's talk Iron Jock hoodies and their new all purpose joggers. Now through October 13th, when you purchase men's or women's hoodies and joggers, use promo code FALL30 to receive 30% off every hoodie and jogger in your cart, and you'll also get a free Iron Jock travel towel. Go to ironjock.com for details. That's ironjoc.com. As we wait for Wayne Larivee to get on the line, Brewers down 8-4. Both Tim and I have the game on here in the background. I don't like the New York Mets. I don't want the New York Mets to win. I know I troll Brewers fans often on this show, but I would never, ever root for the New York Mets, so I'm with you on this one.
This is what stinks about this, is that, and this is why you fight so hard during the season to finish either first or second, because you get the first round bye. Now you play this wild card, whatever you want to call it, playoff round.
Mm-hmm.
You got to win 2 and you're done. I mean, if this continues and the Brewers end up losing this game, tomorrow it's do or die. I mean, that's what's. I mean, the Astros and their fans are sitting there going, "What?" Well, you had a hot team in Detroit that came in and took care of the Astros today.
The best pitcher in baseball pitching for the Tigers.
Yes, and he did that today. And now, I mean, the Mets had to fight and claw to get into the postseason. They're fresh. They're ready. I mean, they just played a doubleheader yesterday. Brewers been off since Sunday. But again, I mean, the bullpen was supposed to be the strength of this team. And Freddie struggled in the second inning, but he's kind of done that all year. But Payamps did not pitch well. Ashby did not pitch well, and the Brewers now find themselves in a 4-run hole as they head to the 6th inning. So things do not look good at American Family Field right now.
Things are looking better for the Green Bay Packers, even coming off a loss as they head to the City of Angels. And I realized today, Los Angeles literally translates to the Angels. So
you didn't know that?
Well, I just put 2 and 2 together.
Okay.
I was a Spanish minor in college.
Okay. All right.
So it should have clicked sooner for me. But Packers will fly to Southern California. I don't know if they fly to Los Angeles specifically, but they'll fly to Southern California this weekend. Date with the Rams. No Cooper Kupp or Puka Nacua for the Rams. So this is a game the Packers should win on paper. There's a reason on paper is the qualifier there because you got to play the games.
Mm-hmm.
Just like the Packers on paper should have beat the Giants last year, but they didn't. Packers should win this game, though. But one thing they got to figure out is the kicker situation.
Yes.
We teased it a little bit heading into the break. Braden Narveson, couple stats here. He's missed more field goals than anyone in the NFL. Doesn't have the worst percentage because he's also tied for the most attempts. He's 9 for 13. The 2 guys below him in percentage, Justin Tucker of the Ravens and Matt Gay of the Colts, both have multiple misses from 50 or more yards. Braden Narveson has not attempted a field goal of 50 or more yards. Every kick that Braden Narveson has missed has been wide right or off the right upright. So there's clearly something he needs to change there, despite Rich Bisaccia saying he likes his alignment. Clearly something needs to change. The other one, which Tim brought up before the break, NFL kickers this season, 115 for 116 of field goals less than 40 yards. The one player who missed, Braden Narveson. Against the Vikings on Sunday, off the right upright. It looks like they're going to stick with him for now. And I emphasize for now because how thin can your patience be with a kicker who keeps missing kicks? As I believe we're getting Wayne Larivee on the line, we'll continue this discussion. Wayne and I just chilling. We don't have to worry about the Yankees until Saturday. Don't mean to rub it in any Brewers faces or Brewers fans' faces who are listening, but I vow not to talk about the Yankees with Wayne Larivee. Wayne?
Yes, sir.
We're not talking about the Yankees because I empathize with Brewers fans who are going through it right now. But let's talk Packers kicker situation, which is equally as bad as what the Brewers are doing right now. Look, it doesn't look like Braden Narveson is the guy. Brian Gutekunst said right after roster cutdown day that part of the reason, he didn't say this word for word, I'm paraphrasing here, but he implied that part of the reason they released Anders Carlson just a year after they drafted him was because the Packers couldn't afford to let such a talented roster go to waste because of an inconsistent young kicker. Was Anders Carlson the only problem last year? Was he the only reason they lost to the 49ers, despite missing a 41-yarder in a game they lost by 3 with, I think, like 6 minutes left? No. But you got to have a more reliable kicker. He missed a kick in 9 out of the last 12 games last season. Brian Gutekunst also said, then I want to get your opinion on this, that he's probably not as patient with specialists as he should be. He mentioned Ted Thompson being more patient with Mason Crosby and him always coming out the other side. He mentioned J.K. Scott, who the Packers released after 3 years with the team, who has since gone on to bigger and better things with the Chargers. How thin do you think the Packers' patience is with Braden Narveson? Because it seems Matt LaFleur's behind him, but this is a Brian Gutekunst, Rich Bisaccia decision to me, more so than LaFleur, who still has some say. If you were the Packers, would you cut Braden Narveson now? They're obviously not doing it. And how much longer do you think he has if he continues to struggle?
I think at least another week. It sounds like to me that I think they would have made a move by now if they were going to make one right away. I think he gets another game at least, and then they go from there. But, the other thing, Matt, you have to ask yourself, who's out there? And is what's out there better than what the Packers have? Narveson apparently, and I don't see the practices. You don't either. He's been good in practice from what Matt LaFleur has said. And so, they still have some confidence in him, or at least LaFleur does. And, I guess that's where we're at with the kicker at this stage of the game. The other thing you got to be careful with is, okay, who's out there? Who are we getting that's better than him if you make this move?
Yeah, so there are a couple names, and I have a story posting on The Athletic tomorrow morning about the whole kicker situation. Let me throw out 5 names for you. Brandon
Sure.
McManus, longtime kicker in this league. But that comes with the caveat that the NFL just cleared him yesterday. Or I don't know if cleared is the right word. The NFL determined yesterday, according to reports, that there was insufficient evidence to discipline him after 2 women accused Brandon McManus of sexually assaulting them on a flight, a Jaguars team flight, I believe, to London last season. So he will not face discipline, according to reports, and is free to sign with any team. Knowing the Packers, I don't think they touch that, even if the NFL has cleared him to play.
And understand the NFL can clear him to play, but the lawsuits that these women have against him would, as I understand, will continue to proceed through the courts if they want to pursue it that way. And so, you could sign him, and this could continue to, unravel as we go along. But, he's probably, Matt, is he the most, I can't think of anyone else out there that is more reliable as a kicker. You know what I mean?
No, there's probably not, but I just don't think the Packers touch that, knowing how they
do
their business.
Yeah.
A couple other names, Randy Bullock, longtime kicker in the league, a veteran, Riley Patterson, who's kicked for the Lions, and then Rob Demovsky reported today that they worked out 2 kickers today, Chad Ryland and Lucas Havrasik. Chad Ryland was a 4th-round pick of the Patriots last season, made 16 of 25 field goals, and 19 of 22 extra points.
Wow.
Lucas Havrasik, or no, Chad Ryland, I believe, made 24 of 25 extra points. Lucas Havrasik went 15 of 20 on field goals in 9 games for the Rams last year, and then he was the one who made 19 of 22 extra points. Chad Ryland played all 17 games. Havrasik played 5. So, or Havrasik played 9. So they have a couple options. It seems like the 2 they are eyeing, whether that is a kicker to sign or to just stash for your emergency list in case things get worse, or to just stash on your practice squad in case they want to elevate Alex Hale. We haven't seen Alex Hale in practice. Maybe he's making strides, which Rich Bisaccia has said he is. So we'll see what happens with the kicker situation. Wayne, what were your impressions of Jordan Love in his first game back from that knee injury? He played through the whole game, which was the good sign. Matt LaFleur said he was sore, but okay coming out of the game. Did you see more bad or good? And were there enough good things to build upon going to Los Angeles this week?
Enough good things to build upon going to Los Angeles. I thought the second half of the game, again, and it was a different kind of situation, running more of the up-tempo type of offense. They got into a little bit more of a rhythm. They put 3 touchdowns on the board in the 4th quarter. I thought he really shook off the rust. In the start of the game, first half, I'm like everyone else, like Jordan said, I agree with him. I mean, he wasn't quite as sharp. And when we talk about accuracy in the NFL, we're not talking about completion percentage, folks. We're talking about where the quarterback puts the ball
All
on the
placement.
receiver. It's all placement. And that's what it is. Because these receivers are going to make a lot of tough catches. What you don't want is having that receiver having to make a lot of tough catches. So I thought Jordan, and he admitted it after the game, and I thought rightfully so, he was off a little bit, and understandably so. I mean, he'd been out a couple of weeks, so but I thought he warmed to the task. I don't know if you felt that way, but I thought he did in the second half. And again, it became a passing game, so he kind of shook off the rust and got back into the throwing motion. But I think there's plenty to build on that. And, I think the fact that the guys, hey, listen, you're down 28-0 or 28-7 at halftime. And, there are a lot of teams I've been around that would have basically cashed it in and said, we'll come back next week. But the Packers didn't. They tried to rally, and unfortunately, their mistakes. 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter, Matt, but the 2 turnovers made the comeback virtually impossible. 2 turnovers in the fourth quarter.
I think a knock on the early Matt LaFleur teams here in Green Bay was that when they got down early, they just played dead and laid down. That was not the case. And sure, something can be drawn from that. I know the silver lining is that they fought back and only lost by 2 in a game they were down 28, and that's nice, but you still lost. You still put yourself in that position. And like you said, Love took the blame for that. He said his ball placement was a little all over the place, which I would agree. And I thought you made a good point, Wayne. Accuracy is not just completion percentage, it's ball placement, because the Packers coaches are going to give Jaden Reed or not Jaden Reed, Dontavian Wicks, Jaden Reed on the swing pass, I guess. They're going to give them drops. But Jordan Love, specifically of Wicks, who had a couple quote-unquote drops, said, I didn't help him. I didn't put the ball in the right spot. So I think 2 things can be true. 1, they're drops, and the receivers need to catch them, because the rule the Packers have is if you get both hands on the ball, you should catch it, and that's the case for some of those. But I think it can also be true that Jordan Love needs to make it easier on his receivers and put the ball in a better spot. On the Jaden Reed swing pass that's supposed to be blocked up, he put it too low and too short.
Yeah.
Jaden Reed should be able to catch that in stride. For Dontavian Wicks, the one near the left sideline, the short pass, he shouldn't have to dive for that. Love should hit him in stride in the chest.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And
it's his first game back.
That's the rust. That's the first game back.
Right.
That's the rust we're talking about. Hey, Matt, let me ask you this, because I want your opinion on this and rewatching the game. The protection. I thought the Packers held up pretty well against this, Brian Flores multiple number sets that we kept seeing throughout the afternoon. What did you think of the pass protection? Sure, there was some pressure, but there's always pressure. But I thought they held up pretty well against the team that came in with the best pass rush in the NFL.
Yeah, I agree. Looking at the advanced numbers, I think the Vikings pressured Jordan Love on a little over 41% of his dropbacks, which is well above the league average. So from that perspective, not great. But like you said, a Brian Flores defense is always going to generate pressure. They only allowed 1 sack, and the Vikings came into the game, I believe, leading the league in sack percentage and sacks. So that was good. Not only that, Jordan Love was able to extend some plays, even though he didn't really take off on his own, but also that even in the face of pressure, Jordan Love stood in the pocket. He didn't just want to get rid of the ball at the snap of a finger whenever he felt pressure to avoid any hits on his knee. He stood in there. I thought his composure, his pocket presence was good. Did it always result in a positive play? No. But I think it was a good first step that he didn't just cower from all that and really let the knee affect how he went about his business. He said after the game he didn't think the knee affected his play at all. I find that hard to believe. I understand he doesn't want to make excuses, but I thought the pass protection and Love's pocket presence kind of go hand in hand and were pretty solid against a team that was the NFL sack leader coming in.
Yeah, no doubt. And they had at least 5 sacks in all 3 of their games, 16 overall coming into the game. I thought that was a positive there. The one thing, and you guys started discussing it yesterday, the Packers pass rush, and the plays we were expecting the defensive front 7 to make, some of that, not enough of it. Let me put it that way. And I thought Matt LaFleur was very honest when he said, not up to our standard, and meaning, his team standard. They're going to have to get more out of the front 7, I think, going forward. And you know what? Looking at the Rams, early look at them, that offensive line may not have huge names on it, outside of Havenstein. But they're pretty solid. They're a pretty salty outfit from what I could tell. And they move the ball on the ground against the Bears. And the Bears are one of the better run defenses in the league. And they were pounding them a little bit at times in that game at Soldier Field. So this is not going to be an easy task. But I think the Packers need more production from their defensive front seven.
Yeah, we talk about the pass rush specifically. We played the audio from LaFleur on yesterday's show of him saying the pass rush Sunday against the Vikings was not up to their standard. Now, specifically, LaFleur mentioned the pass rush when they sent 4, because if you think back to the game against the Titans, they had 8 sacks. That's one shy of tying a franchise record. They only had 2 sacks when they blitzed, so 6 of those came when they rushed 4. They were getting home with 4. Against the Vikings, they only blitzed 21.5% of the time. 2 of those sacks came when they rushed 4. The Quay Walker sack, Preston Smith dropped into coverage, so that's why it's not considered a blitz. But Matt LaFleur specifically mentioned their inability to get home with 4. The Packers' pressure percentage, I mentioned the Vikings earlier, of a little bit over 41%. The Packers was 33.3%. That would rank about 20th in the league if you take the full season averages for these teams. So not only did they not get pressure, they got home twice. They sacked Sam Darnold twice, once on Quay's rush up the middle, and then another on Keyshawn Nixon's sack fumble. But the pass rush has to be better. And before we let you get out of here, Wayne, I want to pick your brain on Rashawn Gary, because that's a hot topic on Packers Twitter right now. Everyone wants the sacks and the forced fumbles. I get that. And those plays certainly matter. And I think everyone on the same end, I'm not trying to insult Packers fans' intelligence. Everyone knows that there are other ways to affect the quarterback. There are pressures. There are eating up double teams, freeing up stuff for other people. There are, chips and screens that other teams can utilize to neutralize pass rushers so they don't even have enough time to rush the quarterback. And Preston Smith said the Vikings did that. But at the end of the day, the TJ Watts, the Myles Garretts, the Micah Parsons, the Max Crosbys, the Nick Bosas, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but don't you think they face all that stuff too?
Oh, yeah.
Anytime an offense goes into a game, they have that guy circled. How are they going to stop him? Chips, double teams, running away from him, screens away from him. But those guys still put up those numbers. Rashawn Gary isn't paid quite like them. But at some point, you got to make something happen. You're making in the mid-20 millions per year on an average annual salary. I'm not saying there are excuses. There are more justifications for maybe why he hasn't had the splash plays. But at some point, the splash plays just simply have to come.
No, I can't agree with you more, Matt. And I know it's not for lack of trying. I mean, this is one of the stalwart people in that locker room, in my opinion. He's as good as it gets. But yeah, you need more production. I thought another thing. I don't know what you thought, but I thought when Devante Wyatt went out of that game early, that Minnesota's tackles are pretty good. The interior part of the line is where the Packers have always done business against Minnesota. And Devante Wyatt, I thought, was uniquely gifted to make something happen in the middle of that defensive line. And when he went out, I thought that was a big blow for the Packers and a break for the Vikings. But you're right about Rashawn. I mean, he's got all the ability in the world. And the one thing I will say, he came out of high school as the number 1 rated prospect in the country, went to Michigan, and never really quite lived up to the numbers people would have expected from the number 1 recruit in the country. You know what I mean? So I'm at a loss. I think that more is expected of him, and rightfully so. He's got great gifts. But I think we're going to see it. I think we will. I don't think this kid doesn't take time off. I mean, he's doing everything he can. You're right, though. The splash plays have to happen.
Yeah. Talk to anybody in the Packers locker room, and you'll know that Rashawn Gary is a leader of that team, leader of that defense. And, Rashawn Gary is willing to do media and is always available when we need him, but he's always off doing something. He's working on his body or, training or lifting. Like, it's not for a lack of commitment. But at the end of the day, he's got to make plays. He's making enough money where he has to simply make plays. We'll see if he can get that fixed against the Rams and Matthew Stafford, because on that defensive front, Will Levis and Anthony Richardson are just going to give you the ball. Guess who's not? Matthew Stafford, future Hall of Famer,
Yep.
one of the best quarterbacks of this generation. So we'll see what we get when the Packers meet the Rams on Sunday. A should-win game. I'm not ready to say a must-win game, but a should-win game for the Packers, but they play the games for a reason. Wayne, we'll catch you out there. Like I told Tim, I changed my flight so I could get to LA in time to be settled for the Yankee game, whatever time it is.
We'll be ready.
We'll be ready. Thanks, Wayne. Talk to you next week.
All right. Oh, you bet. Thanks, man.
All right. On the other side of this break, right here on the Matt Schneidman Show, we will wrap up some loose odds and ends, preview availability in practice tomorrow, what to expect, some injury updates from the Packers. So stick with us right here on the Matt Schneidman Show on the Game. The Packers have high hopes going to LA this weekend, playing the Rams without Cooper Kupp or
Brewers
Puka
don't.
Nacua, their top 2 wide receivers. How are the Brewers doing? They have high hopes too.
8-4.
Haven't exactly panned out today, but
they trail.
Best of 3 series.
Yeah, I know.
Still a couple innings left. For the Packers, they're coming off a game in which they struggled in the secondary, and that was somewhat to be expected since they didn't have cornerback Jair Alexander or cornerback Carrington Valentine due to injury. We'll see if they have either of them this week as we get out on the practice field tomorrow, see if either of those guys are out there. Carrington Valentine had been rotating with Eric Stokes. He's missed the last 2 games, Valentine, that is. But in the last game he played against the Colts, Valentine outsnapped Stokes. So you could argue that the Packers were without their top 2 cornerbacks against maybe one of the top wide receiver duos in the league in Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Certainly didn't help that Keyshawn Nixon and Eric Stokes and Corey Ballantyne had their miscues and gaffes in the game on Sunday. But I think this Sunday's game against the Rams, without their top 2 wide receivers, is a more manageable game for the Packers if they are going to be depleted in the secondary. Sure, the Packers are going to want those guys back regardless, no matter if they're playing the 97-3 sports team or the Los Angeles Rams without their top 2 receivers or the Minnesota Vikings with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison. Matt LaFleur said Jair Alexander's injury to his groin, which he suffered in practice on Thursday, didn't seem too significant. He was already on the injury report with a quad, picked up a groin on Thursday, didn't practice Friday, didn't play. Valentine was doubtful, I believe with an ankle that he might have suffered coming out of week 2, if I'm not mistaken. They got to get at least one of those guys back, though, because they can't let someone like, with all due respect, of course, Tutu Atwell, Demarcus Robinson to go off against the Rams. But I think it is a nice reprieve for Ryan Downer, the secondary coach, to think, okay, if we don't have our guys, we can at least maybe get by another game going against the Rams. After that, it's Marvin Harrison Jr. coming into Lambeau. It's after that, Tank Dell and Nico Collins and Stephon Diggs coming into Lambeau. So these corners got to get healthy quick.
Here's a question I'm going to ask you, and I'm going to build off what you and Wayne were talking about at the end of your conversation about not getting to the quarterback, the pressure. Go back to the Viking game. The fact that you don't have your 2 top corners, I mean, you're going to be a little bit more reserved, aren't you? A little bit? I mean, it changes up.
John Kuhn brought up.
Yeah. It limits you.
John brought this up earlier in the week, and we talked about it on our podcast today, how on some of those crossing routes that Justin Jefferson got the Packers on late in the game where Keyshawn Nixon's in man and he, doesn't lose Jefferson, but Jefferson beats him across the middle for a 17-yard gain. And then a couple plays later, Eric Stokes gets caught up in, the kerfuffle of the tight end crosser from the other side of the field because he's also in man on Jefferson, and Jefferson gets wide open for a 27-yard gain. What John said, and I agree with this, is if you're going man and other teams run crossing routes, which is going to happen often because John said on teams he was on, if they saw, a defender following a guy in pre-snap motion, they would check to a crosser because crossers are so hard to defend in man. You got to be able to get home with your pass rush.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you give guys too much time on crossing routes, they're going to get open. Got to get home with your pass rush. And I like how you brought that up because, like I was talking about with Wayne, the Packers didn't get home enough with their pass rush. Not on those 2 plays, not on a lot of plays. And that's going to doom you if teams are running crossing routes, if they're playing man. Would it have helped to have Jair Alexander? Yes. Would he have completely eradicated some of those big gains? Who knows? But the Packers would have a better chance if their best cornerback was on the field. That's why I say regardless of the opponent, they got to make sure he's back. Matt LaFleur said they don't know if he's going to play Sunday yet. And as I said before the break, it doesn't look too significant. But they still got to get him back on the field because the breakdowns that they had in the secondary on Sunday, you're never going to go far in this league if you consistently have those.
I just wonder, though, and I mean, obviously, Kuhn and you know more than I will ever about this, but I just wonder from a play calling standpoint that if Hafley and staff, because you don't have your 2 top corners, you're going to take fewer risks. You're going to, maybe your blitz packages would be more if you have the guys on the back end. When you don't, I mean, in some cases, you pointed out about Keyshawn Nixon. He looked a half step slow behind Jefferson, and he's not a slow guy.
No, he's not.
It's just that's how fast Jefferson is. But again, I just wonder sometimes if it really changes your game plan, what risks you're willing to take in key situations because of the injuries they had last Sunday.
Yeah, I absolutely think it does. And the Packers are going to have to get things figured out on the defensive side of the ball so they don't lose a game they should win against a quarterback that can exploit you, no matter who he has at his disposal in Matthew Stafford, someone the Packers know all too well from his days with the Detroit Lions. Now, let's get into this before we get out of here, as the Brewers game goes to the 8th inning, down 8-4. The running back situation.
Mm-hmm.
We discussed it a little bit on yesterday's show. Emmanuel Wilson is playing well enough that I think he's earning more snaps. But the Packers also are paying Josh Jacobs $12 million a year. They're not quite splitting snaps. Against the Titans, they kind of did, because I think Josh Jacobs only played 52% of the offensive snaps, had 15 touches to Wilson's 14. Against the Vikings, the run plan was kind of thrown out the trash because of how big they were down early in that game. Josh Jacobs played 61% of the offensive snaps. Wilson played 39. Jacobs had 9 rushes. Wilson had 8. You're obviously going to run the ball more if it's a close game later in the game, so I wouldn't read too much into that. But this isn't like a split backfield anymore with Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon, Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams. Even that wasn't really a split backfield. I would expect a bigger discrepancy in the Josh Jacobs, Emmanuel Wilson snaps. But Matt LaFleur said after the game, we had to firm up our pass protection as the game went on, which is why Wilson played more. I
was just going to say that. Was that the reason why? Because that, if I had to guess, it would be because of that Wilson's just better. And when they're down a 28-7 hole, everybody in the building knows they're going to pass.
Of course. Now, John said earlier today he thinks the Packers abandon the run too quickly, which has kind of been not a theme, but that's been a talking point a couple times throughout Matt LaFleur's tenure. So that's a possibility too, although I do understand why you would abandon the run if you're down 4 scores in the second quarter of a game. Bottom line is, Josh Jacobs hasn't scored a touchdown yet. Is that the end-all, be-all?
Well, he should have had one against the Colts. You and I both know that.
Oh, of course. I saw a stat today. I have to confirm it. I don't know if it's true, but it sounds true. Josh Jacobs just set the record for most receptions by anyone in NFL history without a receiving touchdown. He still doesn't have a touchdown catch in his career.
Really?
And he's going into year 6. So other people can score touchdowns, obviously. But the Packers got to find a way to get Josh Jacobs in the end zone. Got to find a way to get him going repeatedly on offense, on the ground. It's kind of been in spurts. Non-existent for the first half with poor blocking against the Eagles. Then he got going in the second half. Great in the first half against the Colts, and then nothing in the second half. Titans, nothing. Vikings, a little bit. Like, this is a guy they're paying $12 million a year. Along with Xavier McKinney, this was their marquee free agent addition. He's done some good things, yes. But we heard a lot about him getting involved in the passing game. He's just been used on checkdowns mainly, it looked like on Sunday, had 4 catches. But if I'm the Packers, I want to get Josh Jacobs more involved as an integral piece of this offense, especially if Christian Watson is going to miss some time.
Well, I would think also the injury to your quarterback plays a little bit of a factor, too. A
little bit.
Be patient, Matt. Come on now. Be patient.
Oh, I'm patient. I have to be patient. I have to wait 4 more days, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, for my baseball team to play.
Yeah, I know. I'm watching my baseball team. They just showed a guy with his face painted blue. Man, that was a great idea when we were up 2-0. When we took the lead 4-3, that was even better. Now, you look like an idiot.
That's okay. Still plenty of time. Still plenty of series left. Tim Scott, the forever optimist. We'll be back tomorrow right here from 6 to 7 on The Game. This is the Matt Schneidman Show. We appreciate you listening.